Hurricane season has arrived, and with it, powerful winds, heavy rain, and intense storm surge are possible. We've seen what these storms can do, forcing many into life or death situations and inundating homes and businesses with floodwaters. Last September, Hurricane Florence pounded the eastern Carolinas, causing devastation in places like Conway, Nichols, Socastee, and Lumberton. Hurricane Florence was among the 10 most destructive storms in U.S. history. Tonight, we're getting you ready for the next hurricane so you can protect yourself and your loved ones. This is a WBTW News 13 special broadcast, Hurricane Season 2019, Learning from Florence. Sponsored by Sandpiper Heating, Air Conditioning, and Electrical.
And welcome to our Hurricane Special. I'm Storm Tracker 13 Chief Meteorologist Frank Johnson. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to explore hurricanes and what your family can do now to help prepare for them. We'll also take a look at the science behind these storms, see how local emergency management leaders are getting ready, and check out the official 2019 Atlantic hurricane season outlook. We'll also break down a common misconception about hurricanes, and we'll tell you how to protect your pets ahead of the next storm. And later, we'll go inside a hurricane and talk to hurricane hunters about their journeys into the eye of the storm. But we begin with a look back at what happened when Hurricane Florence rolled through last year. News 13's Chris Spiker takes us through Florence's slow journey through the Carolinas and the devastation it left behind.
After a 2-week journey across the Atlantic Ocean, the Carolinas braced for Hurricane Florence.
We are in a very deadly and important game of chess.
Mandatory evacuations were ordered for about 1 million people in South Carolina, including Horry and Georgetown counties. Peaking as a Category 4 storm in the Atlantic, Florence made landfall as a Category 1 on September 14th in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina, just east of Wilmington. The North Strand saw the strongest gusts in South Carolina. Florence slowed to a crawl after landfall and weakened to a tropical storm right before crossing the state line south of Loris. The threat was only getting started as all the inland rain made its way to the ocean. The Lumber River in Lumberton saw record flooding.
The water just kept coming up and up.
Downstream in Marion County, after finally recovering from Hurricane Matthew's flooding, Nichols was under even more water than the 2016 storm.
I don't know how long I can stay here.
They hit a bridge. They got swept to the guardrail.
Just outside Nichols, 2 women, Wendy Newton and Nicolette Green, drowned while being transported in an Horry County Sheriff's Office van for mental health treatment. Rural communities along the Great Pee Dee, Little Pee Dee, and Waccamaw rivers all flooded for several weeks. The Waccamaw reached a record high in Conway.
Most of these houses are on septic tanks. Guess where that water's at?
Hundreds of roads flooded throughout South Carolina, including State Highway 22 in Horry County. The National Guard used an aquadam to prevent flooding on U.S. Highway 501 in Conway. Socastee was among the last areas to flood, with water from the Intracoastal Waterway lingering into early October. As Florence recovery continues, a greater debate looms about where homes should be built and what people in flood-prone areas should do.
We're not going to keep doing this again. It's not fair to people. It's dangerous.
The race is on for solutions before the next hurricane hits. Reporting for News 13, I'm Chris Spiker.
And among the groups working to keep you safe this season, state and county emergency management crews. Randy Webster with Horry County Emergency Management says its biggest change in 2019 is going from 5 OPCON levels to just 3. 3 will mean normal operations, while 1 will mean a disaster is imminent. Meanwhile, Webster's team has been asking for a new EOC building for years, but it wasn't until just weeks before Hurricane Florence that they found out the current building could only withstand about 100-mile-per-hour winds, or Category 2 hurricane. We asked Webster about when a new building might be in place.
We're still a few years out, assuming the next steps is to get it to a complete design and get it to construction drawings and hopefully get it out to bid, and then let's see what the final price tag is going to be, and that will probably dictate a lot.
The latest plan is for a $26 million EOC near the J. Reuben Long Detention Center. It could be in place in 2 to 3 years. So what should you be doing now to keep your family safe ahead of the next hurricane? Build an emergency kit that includes water, non-perishable food, a flashlight, a battery-powered or hand-cranked NOAA weather radio, extra batteries, first aid items, medications, personal hygiene items, and copies of important personal documents. You should also know if you are in a flood zone and know your evacuation route. And if flooding does occur, stay away from washed out roads, both on foot and in a vehicle. We had people from all across our viewing area drown in their vehicles after Hurricane Florence. For more tips on hurricane preps from the Red Cross and FEMA, head to the News 13 mobile app or WBTW.com. And coming up, I'll break down this season's hurricane outlook and the science behind the numbers. Plus, we'll check out a neat research lab in South Carolina designed to help you prepare your home for a disaster. And as we go to break, some facts and figures from Hurricane Florence. According to the National Hurricane Center, Florence caused 22 direct deaths in the United States. 15 of them were in North Carolina and 4 in South Carolina. 17 of the 22 deaths were due to freshwater flooding. There were an additional 30 indirect deaths from Florence. Most of those were from carbon monoxide poisoning or crashes. Here's an important reminder: never use a generator inside your home or less than 20 feet from any window, door, or vent. Exposure to carbon monoxide can cause loss of consciousness and death.
Hurricane Season 2019, Learning from Florence. Sponsored by Sandpiper Heating, Air Conditioning, and Electrical.
Welcome back. Right now we want to take a look at how you can protect your home from hurricanes. The engineers at the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety have a neat state-of-the-art research lab in Chester County, south of Charlotte. There they study buildings to figure out how to make them withstand disasters for hurricanes. They will use a wall of more than 100 fans powered by 350 horsepower motors to knock over homes so researchers can evaluate how to strengthen construction. They have simple tips for when the next hurricane blows through.
Close all of your interior doors. It's like compartmentalizing everything so that if one window does happen to break, you've contained Mother Nature to that one small room and you haven't invited her into the entire house.
Engineers say extra nails, metal straps tying your house to its foundation, and strengthening your roof all go a long way. A wind-rated garage door is also recommended. And when the wind arrives, FEMA suggests that you cover all your home's windows with storm shutters or marine plywood. Also, be sure trees around your home are well trimmed so they're more wind resistant. For more home preparation tips, head to WBTW.com. Last year, it was all the water that we got from Hurricane Florence that really caused most of the problems in our area. Lives were changed when homes were flooded, especially those that didn't have flood insurance. FEMA says that people who had flood insurance after Florence were able to recover faster than those that didn't. Flood insurance is federally regulated. It covers up to $250,000 per building and up to $100,000 for contents. Additional insurance information from FEMA is available now on WBTW.com. Even our homes could be at greater risks, and our homes could be even greater in risk in the future. Many scientists believe hurricanes will become stronger over time and devastation will become more frequent. Dr. Jennifer Tistansky Hooper, an assistant professor of geography at Francis Marion University, says there's been a global sea rise of between 5 and 8 inches since 1900, and the rate of rise in that time has been faster than ever before. But she says many scientists believe it will get even worse in the coming decades.
For Myrtle Beach specifically, depending on the model that you look at, by 2080 we're looking as much as 1.5 feet, all the way up to nearly 10 feet of sea level rise, and that is what's significant.
And she says rising sea levels will mean greater storm surge. With that, she says hurricane impacts will be felt farther inland and could change where we build homes and major roads near the coast. These increasingly problematic storms could also, of course, impact the tourist industry. So what's expected out of this current hurricane season? The National Hurricane Center recently released the official Atlantic hurricane season outlook. Now, first, please realize that the seasonal forecasts that predict the number of storms should not impact how you prepare for an upcoming hurricane season. This is the forecast for the number of storms across the entire Atlantic Ocean over the next 6 months. It's not a Carolina-specific forecast. If there's only one hurricane in the whole Atlantic all year, but it hits right here, we will consider that a bad hurricane season. This year, NOAA, the National Atmospheric and Oceanic Administration, is predicting a close to normal season. Their forecast calls for a range of 9 to 15 named storms. 4 to 8 of them will become hurricanes, and 2 to 4 of them major hurricanes. An average season will have 12 named storms, 6 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. Now, 2 of the main drivers of seasonal tropical activity are pointing toward different solutions. An El Nino in the Pacific Ocean usually leads to less Atlantic tropical activity. On the other hand, warmer ocean temperatures in the tropics usually leads to more tropical storms. A weak El Nino formed late last year and is expected to continue through the fall. An El Nino is a warming of the tropical Pacific Ocean, and it alters weather patterns all across the globe. One of its impacts is to weaken Atlantic tropical storms. The warmer Pacific Ocean off of South America causes a stronger subtropical jet stream to flow across the Caribbean. This leads to stronger than normal wind shear, which makes it harder for tropical systems to form and also weakens those storms that cross the Atlantic once they get to the Caribbean. On the flip side, ocean temperatures are above normal across the main breeding grounds for Atlantic tropical systems. This warmer water makes it easier for tropical storms to form and gives them more energy, which can make them stronger. Last year, NOAA forecast an average to above average season, and that forecast verified as we ended up with 15 named storms, 8 hurricanes, and 2 major hurricanes. Even with the high number of storms last year, it was just one, Hurricane Florence, that defined the season here in the Carolinas. Straight ahead, wind speed determines the hurricane's category numbers, but we've learned firsthand that that shouldn't be your only focus. Welcome back. Our folks here at News 13 and our parent company Nexstar are committed to keeping you updated on potential storms. We participated in live hurricane red zone coverage of Florence last year. Viewers were able to see reports and storm damage from across the Carolinas as the storm swept through. News 13 was on the air live for nearly 60 hours during Hurricane Florence. You can expect similar coverage this season if a hurricane heads in our direction. And this year, News 13 is participating in a new weekly digital hurricane show called Eye on the Storm. The goal is to make sure you are ready for a hurricane. Nexstar news stations along the Atlantic coast will contribute to these weekly through October. They air live online every Wednesday at 8 p.m. And online right now, we have you covered with helpful tips and safety information as we head into the heart of hurricane season. Just go to WBTW's Hurricane Center section under the Weather tab. You can also download the News 13 app to track storms with our interactive radar. The app is free to download. Now we want to take a closer look at the dangers associated with hurricanes. For that, let's go over to Storm Tracker 13 meteorologist James Hopkins.
Hurricanes are weather monsters that form over warm ocean waters. Some potential threats from hurricanes include storm surges, damaging winds, heavy rainfall, coastal and inland flooding, rip currents, and tornadoes. It is important to focus on the potential impacts storms and hurricanes can bring, not just the category. Hurricane Florence is a prime example of this. Though the National Hurricane Center forecast at one point did show a Category 4 storm barreling towards the Carolina coast, Florence actually made landfall as a Category 1 hurricane due to the winds. The winds were not the primary hazard as we know, it was the relentless rainfall. The Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale is based on the maximum wind speed a storm can determine the category. Wind is not the only killer in hurricanes, therefore the focus is on the hazards, not the categories. Flooding is the major threat for not only those along the coast, but for those areas inland as well. Slow-moving, large storms produce more rainfall. At one point, Hurricane Florence appeared to stall, dumping historic rainfall across much of the eastern Carolinas. In 2016, Hurricane Matthew also produced very heavy rainfall as it moved slowly up the coast. After the storms were gone, the historic river flooding occurred. Both storms combined accounted for 48 total deaths. 43 of them were freshwater deaths from flooding and storm surge. Hurricanes are areas of low pressure. As the pressure falls inside a hurricane, water piles up. That piled up water moves with the forward speed of the hurricane and the winds around the storm. That water is eventually pushed up towards the shore. Storm surge has the potential to kill more people than any other aspect of a hurricane. It accounts for almost half the deaths associated with hurricanes. The angle of approach and the hurricane's overall intensity are all factors of how devastating storm surge can be. The National Hurricane Center now issues tropical cyclone storm surge probability graphics, which show the chances of storm surge height. The best way to survive a storm surge is to know your zone and heed evacuation orders. A better understanding of hurricane hazards will help you make a more informed decision when a storm is heading your way. Frank?
And coming up, keeping your furry friends safe before and during a storm. That's up next. And so you've taken precautions to protect the humans in your household, but what about your four-legged friends? The American Kennel Club says you need a pet first aid kit. That includes your pet's medical paperwork, bandages, hydrogen peroxide, and antibiotics. You should also have your dog on flea and tick control medications at all times. During the storm, plan for power outages in the hot weather by having plenty of water for your pets. The American Red Cross typically does not allow pets inside of disaster shelters. And don't let your pets drink from flood water as it contains bacteria and parasites. Some of that can be transmitted from pets to people. Also, standing water from flooding means more mosquitoes, which can transmit heartworm disease to dogs. And after your family and pets, your next big concern may be waiting for power to come back on at your home. It could take days, so be prepared. Utility companies like Duke Energy prepare for hurricane season year-round. Response plans are reviewed and incorporated into training, drills, and exercises for the next year. We asked Duke Energy lineman Neil Lawhon about hurricane preps.
We'll go through the trucks, we'll do a little inventory on tools, material, make sure we have what we need. We'll even perform mock storms where we'll kind of practice at what each employee's responsibilities will be.
Once the storm clears, Duke Energy tells us they'll typically start restoring power at vital public health and safety facilities like hospitals and law enforcement buildings, and then work their way toward neighborhoods. Duke Energy also says that it's invested in smart grid technology, which it says will improve service reliability and reduce the length and number of power outages from storms. Straight ahead, we go inside a hurricane as we chat with the hurricane hunters. That's next. Our Hurricane Special continues now with an up-close look at the thrill seekers who go inside hurricanes to try to improve forecasting. Here's Storm Tracker 13 meteorologist Jonathan Wendt.
Getting information from inside a hurricane is critical. Each measurement taken can be significant to the track and intensity of a hurricane. To get that data, hurricane hunters take it to the limit each season. When it comes to flying into a hurricane, there are two planes that get the job done: the U.S. Air Force WC-130 and the NOAA WP-3D. Flying into storms can be tricky, but for the most part, the first half of the flight is just like any normal plane ride.
We get the airplane off the ground, we set the autopilot, we cruise out, talk about where we're going to go, but we're heading toward an initial point.
About 100 miles out is where crew members start their actual mission.
You know, we're looking at the radar pictures, we're talking about what quadrant we're going to start in, what mission profiles, what experiments we're supporting for that day.
All of that plays into which path the flight will take through the storm. Flight crews try to stay in clear air as much as possible. However, sometimes they must take a direct path into an outer band.
You get kind of a steady little shake, and then every once in a while there's a big shake and a big shake.
Just like a hurricane, each mission is different, and crew members can experience anything from a smooth ride to a scary one.
Sometimes it feels like that big hand is just pushing you down. You're pushing the power up, and the airspeed is continuing to roll back, and so is the power, and you're pushing it up, and you're just continuing to descend.
Once inside the storm, the main purpose is to sample the atmosphere in and around the storm. They do this with instruments called dropsondes. Each one of these dropsondes gets sent out inside the hurricane. They collect temperatures, dew points, wind speeds, and air pressure.
All right, this is our cannon. The dropsonde would go into there. We would lower it down and then use a button on this pedestal back here to launch the dropsonde.
This information then gets sent back to the National Hurricane Center, where forecasts can be made a little bit easier. Each flight mission takes about 6 to 8 hours to complete.
And that will do it for this News 13 Hurricane Special. We thank you for joining us. And don't forget, you can always watch our live coverage on WBTW.com and the News 13 app.